All right, 10. One should have some basic understanding of the human mind in order to be an able interpreter. May not be a must, but it helps because the mind is our best weapon. So just like an athlete does not have to be an expert on anatomy or physiology, but it certainly helps to know some basics. Enough said, because I could talk at great length about this. This one is sort of an offshoot maybe about the human memory, but number 11, length of the segment or speech does not matter, as one is not memorizing per se, but rather absorbing it, imbibing it, making it their own story. And this is true. Like factual details aside, for example, like, dates, names aside, I could interpret a segment of any length. Yeah, because you're just basically absorbing the story. And the proof of it, although that's not like mathematical proof, but think of a movie that you went to see, like the last movie or just your favorite movie. Could you relate that movie to your friend? Yes, you may omit some details, but you could, the main plot. Did you try to memorize that movie? Or a book, your favorite book, like think of whatever, The Count of Monte Cristo, War and Peace, Harry Potter. Like you could just probably sit there for minutes or even hours relating the plot of Harry Potter if you're really a buff, Right, Rick? Okay, 12. The absolute key concept, all this important, in interpreting and translation is duplication. Rather than just reading the text, I'm going to explain duplication. Well, take these headphones. What is duplication? Duplication would be basically creating the exact same case and exact same headphones. Now, of course, they wouldn't be the exact same headphones because the molecules are different, right? They were created at different times, so they're not exactly the same, but for all intents and purposes, they are. Like, look, these two pillows are basically duplicates of each other. And remember, combine it with the fact that we're not striving for absolute perfection, and that's it. Voila. So I like to say that translators and interpreters are really good forgers. We're creating a forgery, we're trying to create a forgery that is indistinguishable from the original. And if you can do that, then you're truly great. And when I say duplication, that's actually important. It works on many levels. Like, it basically means creating a duplicate or repeating the same thing twice, but it works on many levels. Meaning, which includes all the nuances, all the units of meaning, all the factual information. That's, for example, such things as like quarter technical interpreting, right? Style, register, tone, intention is one that people often forget. You can translate or interpret a sentence and lose the intention. I give this example often, but that's because it's a beautiful example. And this was a Department of State interpreter who was friends with and interpreted for Bill Clinton. And he said that when Clinton and Yeltsin met, Boris Yeltsin said something like, "Здравствуй, Bill. Здравствуй, Bill, мой друг." And he said it in a very, very friendly and amiable manner. And that line, "Hello, Bill, my friend," was the most important line to interpret because of the intention, because it set the tone for further communication. So I could honestly talk at great length about this particular axiom because I think, that in every field of art or music or in every profession, there's like one key thing, one key datum, one main tenet that everything else revolves around. For example, in running, it's falling, using the force of gravity to move your body forward. And everything else revolves around that particular aspect. And I think that in translation and interpreting, it's just that, duplication. If you understand that's what we're doing, and pretty much nothing else, it becomes very simple. Sure, there are many techniques, there are many methods, but what we're doing is just duplicating and creating the exact same thing in a different language. And I have a whole article in my book, Translation Essays, about the coffee cup analogy, which kind of talks about that. Okay, yeah, this I remember at the beginning I said I hope that's in there, and it was in there, but it's kind of phrased in a positive way. So anything that is truly understood can be interpreted, providing you're fluent in both languages. No, this is a little different. The real stumbling block in interpreting are words misunderstood in the source language, much more than missing the right word in the target language. And words and terminology and jargon are interchangeable. It could be phrased. But remember I said that you cannot translate what you do not understand? That basically is a different phrasing of that same axiom. It's just stated a little differently, but yeah, I should probably put that in there. But you cannot translate what you do not understand. That should be obvious. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes, people say, how do I translate this? How do I translate this? I'm just having such a hard time translating it. And you ask them, well, what does it mean? And they're like, well, I don't know, but how do I translate it? But that's absurd. So it's a little different. It's an offshoot. So the axiom that I have written down is that it comes down to terminology and phrase it. Because check this out. If you understood every single word and term and phrase and preposition and symbol in the original, and provided again that you know the target language at least decently well, you would be able to translate or interpret it. There would be no problem. Yeah, I've said this, but I should probably sort of separate these two axioms, but I think you get the point. One is that you cannot translate what you do not understand, and two is that what you do not understand basically comes almost always down to words and terminology. Okay, you can interpret a phrase or a passage in multiple various ways, all correct. There's a lot of flexibility, and I would say there's almost an infinity of ways to do it right. In fact, with my students, I will do this exercise where I'll take a relatively short and simple sentence, like I'm sitting here at Hotel Julian on a couch, it's rainy, it's foggy, and I'm recording a video. And there are many, 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 many ways to interpret that sentence. And it's a very good exercise. So as long as we're not adding, omitting, or altering, right? Okay, the next one is pretty much a no-brainer, but not exactly. Naturally, what is interpreted is not words, but concepts and ideas. Except in some places there is still this oath in immigration. Do you swear to interpret word for word? Or maybe they say literally. I think they say word for word. So somebody obviously didn't send them my article. Should be obvious, but it isn't. Okay. Interpreting concepts and ideas, this is the reverse side of the coin, does not mean that one can be sloppy about details because one is only interpreting concepts. And people will tell you this, like, oh, I interpret conceptually. When I tell them, well, you missed, the fact that the wall at Hotel Julian is blue or that the foyer is spacious. And they'll be like, but I'm interpreting concepts. It doesn't matter. No, it does matter. Interpreting concepts does not mean that you can omit details. Of course, every context is different. So, I'm talking here about right now more technical maybe concept. Okay, let's keep going because I actually am enjoying this, even though it's late. Concepts can be broken down into units of meaning. And I don't believe I'm the first to have said this. I think I came up with unit of meaning on my own, but then I saw the same term somewhere else. So there are a lot of smart people out there. And a unit of meaning is a datum, a piece of information, just any one specific detail. For example, if I say, Vladimir is recording a video about the axioms of translation. What are the units of meaning? Well, the guy's name is Vladimir. He is doing something and recording a video. We could break it down further, like he's doing something to the video, he's recording it. And what is it about? It's about the axioms of translation. Like a glass of milk is standing on the table. So there's a table, there's a glass. The glass contains milk. The relationship of the glass to the table is on top and supported by. So it's a good exercise, actually, like taking a sentence and breaking it down to units of meaning. And I wouldn't necessarily get very obsessive about it, like, oh, if somebody said there's a column, is it made of marble and it's made of molecules? No, just there's a column. That's enough, Okay. The next one is actually really, really crucial. Not that the other ones aren't, but this is super important because in any profession, it's good to understand the result, the product of the profession. And when people don't understand their product or the results, then bad things happen. And product comes from Latin pro, forward, and ducere, maybe it's ducere, but I think it's ducere, to lead. Maybe in Latin it was ducere. I forgot my Latin. It's been a while since I've lived in ancient Rome. But let's say that a doctor thinks that conducting a visit is his product. Well, that's faulty, because conducting a visit is not his product. A patient who feels better or disease that is cured is his product or her product. A product of a taxi driver, or today Uber driver, would be a passenger delivered to the right place safely and ideally in a pleasant way. Like, for example, today I was delivered to Pier 39 instead of Pier 33. There's a difference. So actually do this exercise for yourself. Think of products maybe of different activities or professions, but the product of an interpreter and a translator is communication and linguistic understanding between people that is at the same level as if they were speaking the same language. What does it mean? Well, it means that if I speak English or Russian and somebody else speaks English or Russian, we're speaking completely fluently, we don't need an interpreter, and there is basically no barrier at all. If an interpreter or a translator did their job really well, then there will be basically no barrier. Okay, of course the interpreter will be speaking, and some attention and some time goes into that, but otherwise it should be barrierless. And a different way to phrase it is the language barrier between two people or more completely removed. And another one, a bonus product, is not just linguistic understanding, but true human understanding. Okay, many people would probably disagree with me on this. They'll say, no, it's not our job to strive for true human understanding between, let's say, two negotiators or two parties in a business negotiation or in whatever. I would beg to differ. It isn't in court or in such other very strict settings, but if you're a diplomatic interpreter, or if you're a business interpreter, or if you're an escort interpreter, then you're representing your client, and it's in your best interest that they actually achieve what they are setting out to achieve. So with all our demeanor, with all our bearing, we should bring our skills to bear on the fact that we want a human understanding to happen.